These crew members were so unlucky. The big waves were crashing, but they still slept. The waves got stronger, making the furniture inside move out. Then they woke up and panicked. They were in the center of a big storm. The seawater was pouring incessantly through the cabins while they panicked and cried bitterly. Only John was still calm because he knew this boat would never sink. Then he told them to move their belongings to the stern of the boat to avoid seawater damage. Fortunately, the boat still had a dry place. It was a good place for them to stay. After 3 hours since the boat capsized, John carefully divided the food, hoping it would last until they got to the rescue. The next day, he cut a small hole in the deck and inserted a distress signal generator. 5 days had passed. John remembered the early days before getting on the boat. They lived a happy life together. Until one day, though, their families stopped them. They still wanted to explore the outside world. 4 of them gradually got on the boat to go to the big sea. They happily watched the immense sea. The radio announced that a storm was coming, but John subjectively thought that he had experience at sea. He even raised the sails to catch the wind so that the boat could go faster before the storm came. After that, the dark clouds started to come because Fel had never been to the sea. Fel was very worried. He wanted to call for help, but the radio was broken. At night, the storm became stronger. They anchored, then went to bed and left their lives. They can only wait for assistance, but the phone was broken. They just saved themselves. John removed the unnecessary wood panels and then installed them in the cabin to add space. They cut the cloth and hung it high to attract the attention of passing boats. And they will have to eat carefully. The amount of food must also be measured in proportion, and the heads must unite and encourage each other to survive. Fresh water was also leaked when the boat capsized. He was afraid to tell them about it. If they knew it, they would become even more desperate and worried. After 1 month, their family received the news. They were worried, so they asked the rescue team for help. A team of helicopters was searching, and they were sharing a little fresh water. John took out a map and carefully calculated his current location. John designed a water storage system. If it rains, it will use it to store water. They quickly started to work, and then they saw the yacht appear. They tried to draw attention, but they didn't notice them. The last drops of water had dried up that night. It rained very heavily. They hurriedly picked up the bottle to collect water. They were lucky to catch a big fish. After many days of miserable eating, they finally got a full meal. There were many oysters attached to the boat, so the fish swam to find food, and they didn't have to worry about food anymore. They took out the gas canister and cooked the food. The next day they saw a seagull passing by, and so they thought of a way to catch it. And so they had delicious bird meat, and the amount of leftover food was big today. They celebrated small parties, all happily ignoring the previous quarrels. Their relatives were constantly looking for them and hoped that they were still alive, but all previous searches failed. The helicopter team was still scouting. Newspapers published search information. Now their family can only pray for a miracle to happen. Until the 115th day, they shared the work and no longer worried about fighting like before. On the 118th day, they saw the mainland not far away. Everyone was happy and smiling. Only John was unhappy. He didn't want to leave this place because he didn't have relatives. This boat was his home. The other people's lives were on land. On the 119th day, he regained his spirit. At this time, they were reckless. Everyone shared life jackets to prevent the boat from hitting them. Suddenly, the bolt hit something, and it tilted to make John fall. However, a shark appeared. Everyone hurriedly used ropes to pull him. After many days drifting at sea, they finally reached an island. John looked back and voted. He silently thanked it for saving him and the others. Then they went deep inside the island. They were lucky to find a house. There was no one inside, and there was a lot of food. Then they were stuffing food in their mouths. They had a party at night and thanked John for helping them overcome their difficulties. They discussed that they would find someone to ask for help tomorrow. The joy was evident on their faces. The next morning, a policeman came because he received news that the house had been broken into. After a well of interrogation, he realized that they were the ones being searched for, and they were taken to the police station. After many days, they were finally able to call their relatives the day they returned to the mainland. Many reporters who came to interview did not believe in their ability to survive because there was no evidence to prove it. Even said that they did illegal business. They started the investigation. They reached the island where the boat washed up. After many days of searching, they also found its wreck. It was based on a true story, 119 Days at Sea.